Hey, what if 3 simple words is all it would take to change the entire trajectory of an argument, or maybe even eliminate the argument altogether?
This episode is about a simple but powerful phrase that cuts through the chaos, calms the nervous system, and turns our default mode of protection into connection when it comes to conflict.
Stick with us.
Hey friends, welcome back to The Pursuit of Happy Well. We are glad you're here to join us for another episode. And this one is going to be a good one. I feel like I say that every single week, but this week I'm excited about it. I think it could be, I think this is a conversation that some people tend to avoid, or, they're conflict averse. And so they're like, oh no, what are we going to talk about conflict? I don't like conflict, but my hope is that this will give you a new way of seeing or approaching conflict that feels maybe less scary for you. Now, there are some people that are like, conflict, let's go.
Pull up the sleeves. I rolled them up just for this episode.
Boxing ring. And then there are our friends that are like, I just want world peace.
Yes. I did spirit fingers to show that I'm excited for this one.
Yeah. So why are you excited for it?
Do you remember what that's from?
It's from, oh gosh, it was like, these aren't spirit fingers. These are spirit fingers. Gosh. It's like, oh my gosh, why is it?
You're the movie buff.
Hey,
I can't believe you don't have this.
It's cold in here. There might be some toast in the atmosphere. Oh my gosh, bring it on.
Yes,
that's what
go.
it is.
There it
oh
is.
my gosh, wow. Okay.
If you knew that before she did.
If you were just like dying while I was struggling, I'm so sorry.
There you go. There's your movie of trivia for the day. Spirit fingers.
We're glad you're here. All right.
I think that was such a weird movie in general, but like, anyways. I think about spirit fingers more than I probably should.
It was iconic for our generation, babe. It was iconic.
Okay. What are we talking about today? We're talking about conflict.
Yeah, we're talking about the 3 words that cut through noise, calm the nervous system, and could diffuse, I believe, 90% of arguments before they happen, when I really think about it. And so I'm excited to unpack this and share not just like this as a hack, but also understanding the science and the why behind it. Because for me, I like understanding why it works. And because I think some people, they're like, well, if I'm going to use this saying, tell me, why is it worth it? So we'll kind of unpack all of those things in this episode.
So we'll get to the 3 words that we believe could really diffuse or prevent or cut through 90% of your conflict.
Yeah. So I'd actually be curious, if you're watching this on YouTube, just comment like, what is your knee-jerk reaction or response or feeling around conflict?
I know what the 3 words are.
Oh, yeah, but...
No, I know what they are.
What are they, Scott?
I'm always right.
Oh my gosh. Cut. That is not true. Terrible.
I mean, if I'm always right, there is no conflict. There's nothing up for debate. So.
Oh my gosh. This is not true. This is not true. You're giving people a false picture of what our marriage actually is. But actually, you are right most of the time, and it's very annoying. All right. So going back to share your thoughts and feelings in the comments. How do you feel about conflict? And actually, if you're listening to this with somebody, maybe it's, look to the person that you're with and be like, okay, what are your thoughts around conflict? And I think oftentimes, actually, I think everybody has different thoughts about premarital counseling, but I think one of the most valuable questions we were asked was how we saw our parents resolve conflict growing up, because that shapes how we resolve conflict. And then we learned this concept I think it was from marriage counsel, like premarital counseling before we got married, about the concept of like fighting clean versus fighting dirty.
Oh,
and like you have to learn to fight clean in your marriage.
Yeah, I don't know if that was premarital or not. I remember from premarital, it was definitely like how did you witness, how did you view your parents fight? Yeah. Not necessarily just how they resolved conflict, but just in general, how did they fight? Yeah,
when conflict rises or when tension rises, how was that demonstrated for you? Because that often shapes our view of conflict. So maybe if you grew up in a high conflict home, you might see as like conflict as the thing to avoid at all costs, because you're like, I don't want that. Or you see it as like, it's a battleground, game on, let's go. I rise when I enter conflict. And then there are those that respond differently, which is actually what we're going to cover. Because last week, what we talked about was different stress responses, and how our stress responses, essentially how our body perceives an outside stimulus, like such as somebody saying something or an event happening, and the feelings our body gets from looking at the outside stimulus, like whether we feel anxiety, fear, or worry, and essentially how our nervous system seeks to calm or, diffuse those feelings and establish safety again. So let's talk about first why conflict escalates so fast. What makes conflicts get out of hand?
Well, kind of how I said it earlier, I'm always right. So
that, ladies and gentlemen, that right there is how conflict will escalate.
I really just, this is the only reason we decided to do this particular topic.
Just so you can say you're right.
Saying I'm right over and over and over again. And you know what's going to feel really good tonight is sleeping on the couch. The couch
I was
is
about
going
to make that joke.
Be incredible.
I would also like to say Scott has never slept on the couch except for one of us is like horribly sick.
Yeah,
and we don't want to get the other person sick. So that has never, knock on wood, has never happened.
Well, I think before we get into why conflict escalates, one question, just as you're listening, we kind of alluded to this as we started the premarital conversation. It's just like, how did you see your parents fight? I think that's a powerful just pause. Like if you could just pause the podcast or pause the video and just make a note, just think back, like, how did I see my parents fight? And maybe the next question is, what have I taken from that? Do I fight like that? Is that how I resolve conflict the way that my parents did?
Or am I the opposite?
Or am I the complete opposite, right? Like I saw my parents do it one way and I want to do it completely opposite the other way. I know some people talk about that they never saw their parents fight. And sometimes we might be like, maybe you're a parent and you're like, man, that's how I need to do it. And it's like, actually, I don't think that serves your kids at all.
No.
Because there's no witness to one, conflict, and conflict is going to happen. It's not if, it's when. And two is like, they got to see how that gets resolved, how that's handled in a healthy way.
Well, if a child is watching a family and conflict is never visible, and therefore in a child's mind, it doesn't happen, then they internalize that I can't create conflict.
Right.
Our family doesn't do conflict. Conflict is bad. It's just like conflict can't happen. And so that creates a false narrative because that's not life. Conflict is life. And so, but
are you driving right now? Any conflict on the road yet?
Okay, I'm not going to go there with you. But like, no, I am. Because Scott, like, I don't know what it is. You get behind the wheel and all the idiots come out.
Dude.
Okay, we're not going to go there.
You're not wrong on that one. I'm not going to go there.
Okay, so again, like how you witnessed conflict. Did you witness conflict? I'd actually be curious. If you never witnessed conflict, then what is your view of conflict? And is it something that's deeply unsafe? Is it something that threatens separation? Is it something that threatens your sense of self? Because if we don't have a healthy view of conflict, then we see it as, a battleground. We see it as a problem. We see it as and we see it as a threat to our security and our safety and, how we feel about ourselves, essentially.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty huge as far as, our view of conflict.
Yeah, so good. Okay, so take a minute and do that. And then, when you have sat with that for a little bit, jump back in. And so now we'll move into, let's talk about this idea of like, why does conflict escalate? What causes the escalation of conflict? Why is it never just like I like blue, you like green? Like, why does it seem to just like, oh, I like blue,
I like, so violent.
I'm
like
just,
blue.
But seriously.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And like, why can something that is so trivial become such a big thing? Yeah. Like, we're like, are we really fighting about this? Like, how did we get here? I don't know if you've ever had that happen where you're in an argument and you're like, how did we get here? How did it escalate to this? And I often think, one, it's like how you view conflict. Like, is this a desire is conflict an opportunity to get to know someone better, to understand their worldview, to understand yourself, to practice repair, to do those, to create a new level of connection? Or is it something to win?
I'm right.
Scott Boss.
But seriously.
Yeah.
Sometimes like conflict just comes out of it's a pride.
I need to be right.
Yeah.
I have to be right. I have to win. I have to have the last word. Yeah. But not just about winning. I think there are some that need to win, and maybe that's the ego, but I think mostly it's, I want to be seen. what I'm feeling deeply in this moment is I am unseen. I am unheard. I do not matter. I think that is when our big stress response will kick in, when some part of us feels deeply unseen or unheard. I know for me, I'll be honest, like early in our marriage, like if I felt unheard, it's so interesting, I would raise my voice to be heard. And you would say like, babe, I'm in the room with you. I can hear you. I can hear you. And it was a really great way to de-escalate. I was like, oh yeah, like why does my voice keep getting louder? But it was really deeply inside. It was little me being like, I feel unheard, so talk louder, you know? And so that is something for me, you know, if I'm unseen, if I feel unseen or unheard, I'll be heard.
That's interesting. I'd forgotten that was really, really early on.
Yeah.
Where I would say
Aren't you so proud of me? Look how far I've come.
Oh man, I'm right. I'm right. I'd forgotten about that in the sense of just reminding, hey, I'm right here. I can hear you. You don't need to yell.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you heard that in a way that didn't sound, you know, cutting or.
No, it didn't. You just had a way of like kind of what I felt like it was doing. Okay, well, here's the thing. I'm clearly in a stress response in that moment. Like I'm talking fast, I'm talking loud, I'm breathing quickly. I'm not, it's kind of like your body feels like it's being hijacked. And I feel like what you did was you brought me back to the moment, like got me out of like the, you know, all the alarms going off in my body and back to the moment. And it immediately diffused the tension. But those are not the words. I can hear you. I'm in the room with you. Yeah. Those are not the words. But here's the thing.
But that's an example. So that's an example you brought up in the sense of like when you're not heard. But sometimes conflict it can come out of feeling like getting blamed or accusation.
Yes. Oh yeah. If I feel like you are, I think this is big for a lot of people. If it feels like an attack, what is the most, you know, biological, natural response for when we feel attacked is to move into a form of protection. And protection looks different for different people. So we talked about the 4 stress responses last week. So it's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. So somebody that is like has a fight response in conflict, they see the fight as like, they might like their response might be more quickly to counterattack.
Yeah. The bell has rung. Ding, ding, ding,
ding, ding, ding. Boxing gloves on. Let's go. So they'll push back. They might interrupt. Yeah. They argue to be heard. They might get loud. It can get heated. It can get intense. They can talk very quickly. Now, hear this. This is the stress response. This is the part of you this is your this is your nervous system just fully activated, showing up. You haven't taken a breath. You haven't asked for perspective. You haven't stepped away from the conflict. This is just like your nervous system has hijacked your logical brain and you're just in that mode. I can get there myself sometimes. It just depends on the situation. But I think my default in conflict can be fight. And then there's flight, which is avoiding the conversation, walking away, or shutting down. Or flight, I think it's not people pleasing and like I'm going to abandon myself and over function to please you, make you happy, apologize for things I didn't do. That's more of a fawning response. Flight is I'm here in the conversation, but I've mentally checked out. I might placate you. I might be like, I might say, yeah, okay, yep, totally. But I'm not going to fawn over myself to make sure like, are we good? Like right. Flight is like, or it could be just like leaving the room, walking away from the conflict entirely. Or it could be walking away from the conversation in your head and in your body. Like your emotions have left, your body had like your brain has left, your body's present, everything else is gone.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably my more default is the flight.
Yeah.
In the sense of my way to de-escalate is just to check out of it, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not a freeze. It's definitely like, I'm going to remove myself, placate in the sense of like, okay. You know, you tell me
And
this
I've
all the
called
time.
you on it. I'm like,
call
you're
on me all the time,
placating me.
yeah.
Stop.
You're just like, don't you leave.
We're here to fight. Come back.
and yeah, or you know, or physically I remove myself. And sometimes I'll say though,
Yeah.
let me just say this though, that isn't necessarily that I'm flying away, or if this is your mode of operation in terms of conflict. It's not that I'm ditching the conversation. Sometimes I do that because I want to be mindful of the words that I use, and I want to be mindful of the stories in my head.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you'll give me pushback for something that I'm upset about. And I have to ask myself, like, am I upset about this? Is the story I'm telling myself true, valid? Or am I blowing this out of proportion? So sometimes my own flight in my head is like, okay, Scott, let's have a conversation up here. While she's like, let's go.
While I'm in fight, you're full blown having an inner dialogue. That's so funny.
100%.
Like, hey, Scott, let's have a chat.
Let's have a chat up here. Is she serious?
I think there's the retreat because I don't want to feel this and I want to avoid this. And then there is, I think, the healthy retreat that is a pause that like, I'm still in this.
Oh, 100%.
But what I'm doing is collecting myself to make sure I think about my answer, how I want to respond. So there's a fleeing, I'm out, I want to avoid this at all costs. And then there is like, I'm going to call it like the strategic retreat of just like, I'm still in this.
Yeah.
I just need a beat.
And I wouldn't say that my strategic retreat is 100% always what I'm doing.
No, I know when you are doing a strategic retreat.
Sometimes my flight is absolutely, I don't want to feel this, right? Like,
oh, for sure.
Whether it's anger or sadness or I messed up or, you know, whatever it is, there's definitely times where I'm like, I'm not going to feel this. I'm out.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's fight. That's flight.
Yeah. So we've done fight, flight. We've talked about fawn, where it's like, you know, you're over appeasing, you're over functioning. You've now abandoned yourself and your own feelings that you came to the conflict with, and now everything you're doing is to manage the other person's feelings, appease them, make it stop, over agree. You've now diminished your own thoughts and feelings and being like, I probably blew it out of proportion. I probably shouldn't have said that, thought that, done that. So it's a form of self-abandonment, really. It's just like, my needs don't matter. So I'm just going to do whatever I can to appease this person.
Right.
And then there's freeze. I think this happens to a lot of people. Freeze is when your brain will suddenly feel like it's not function anymore. It gets cloudy, foggy. If somebody was to say, can you give me an example of when I did that? And your brain just empties out. You can't find the words. You feel yourself like bumbling over yourself, and I think that person, I feel for this person because I think they want so badly to advocate for themselves, but their entire body's just shutting down. So they can't string words together. They can't recall, like their memory recall is gone. Yeah. So that is a form of freeze, or just shutting down, like no response at all whatsoever. They're in the room, but like you're talking to an ice cube or a stone wall. Like that's how I feel. Like if I'm engaging with somebody that's a freeze response, I feel like I'm talking at someone, not with someone. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I'm talking to a wall. I'm like, hello, are you there? Come back.
Yeah, that's good. So those are the four stress responses.
And I think what's important to know though with that is that these are your protective instincts.
Yeah.
If your perception is that the conflict is an attack, or that your safety or sense of well-being is at risk, and your sense of well-being could just simply be peace in the home.
Right.
When that is at risk, your default, your subconscious, your unconscious stress response kicks in. You're not like, all right, I'm going to go into fight mode now, or all right, time to shut down. Like you're not choosing that. This is happening rapidly on its own, biological response, boom. So does that mean it's going to stop? No, I think the inclination, the response is always going to be there, but we have an opportunity to, instead of reacting from that, all the sensation happening in our body and that very biological response, we have an opportunity to respond instead of react. Yeah. So now it's time to share the 3 words. Or do you want to?
Well, I was going to say one more thing on that is the sense of reminding those that are listening, if they didn't hear last week, the stress response we're talking about in terms of not being a conscious choice is this is like you just turned a corner and a grizzly bear is there. Yeah. Right? Like you're just all of a sudden into it. Yeah. And that common phrase that we talk about that in the military talks about is like people default to their training, right?
Yes.
And so that's part of what we're talking about is like if you can find out your stress type, you can find out how you would respond if a grizzly bear was around the corner.
Yeah.
Then you can try and think about, okay, how can I deal with that? How can I handle that? It doesn't go away, but it allows you an opportunity to train with it.
Yeah, it's just essentially, and this is also kind of why we asked you like, hey, how did you see conflict and watch conflict? Because essentially that was the foundation of your training, right?
100%.
And so, and then as that training is shaped in your childhood, then it continues to be kind of like set in concrete or solidified by other experiences that we use to support that foundation. Right. Like, see, this is why conflict is bad. This is why conflict has to be ran from. And
what is that called when you confirmation bias?
Yeah, confirmation bias.
Right. You go and you basically prove your own experience.
Well, the brain has to do that. The brain is always looking to be proven true. And so it's just like as soon as I have a thought, or pose a theory, the brain is going to go and look for evidence to support how that's true. And we do that because it establishes a sense of safety and security. It's like, if this feels true, then I can rest. I can feel safe with this thought. Yeah. It gets to be my truth, so to speak.
Good. Okay. So the 3 words, they are.
Okay. I'm not going to say yet.
You just stole. That was like, I set it up on a
Was your mouth about to go?
Oh, I had a joke. No,
but
ready
like, hey,
and
listen, hold on. But the reason why it's these 3 words is because what it does is it takes you out of the default, nervous system. I'm in survival mode, and it de-escalates and brings you back into the present moment, and you realize there's not a grizzly bear. All right, so now, Scott.
Okay, my joke's gone, but that's okay.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. So the 3 words, and I think they're huge. I think they're really, really powerful. And I would add nothing to them.
Add nothing.
Because you could also weaponize these as well.
Yeah.
But the 3 words to really turn conflict into connection, an opportunity to break to ground is help me understand. Yeah. Help me understand.
All right, so let's give an example of this.
Well, example I would say that not to use would be like, help me understand why you're all angry all the time. Help me understand why this is such a big deal. Yeah. Help me understand, like, I think it's important the inflection that you use if you're going to add some things to it.
Yeah.
It's not like, help me understand why you're so lame, right? Yeah. Like, help me understand why, it's more like, hey, can you help me understand
the only way
you're responding this way?
Yeah, the only way these 3 words work is when you are asking with curiosity.
Yeah.
The not moment it's accusatory or, an attack or anything like that, it's going to go sideways on you real fast because then it's going to feel condescending.
Right.
But really, these 3 words aren't just a communication tool. It's actually a regulation tool. So what it is if the person feels like they're on the attack, they're going to move into the defense, right? But when I say, hey, help me understand when you said this, what I'm hearing is like, help me understand what you're feeling right now. I think that's a big one. Help me understand what's going on in your mind right now. Help me understand this. Help me understand what's going on for you. And what this does is it moves them out of the self-protection, and now they're being invited into a conversation where they get to share. Like, when I get to share my feelings, that's different than defending myself. Like, someone's asking me, hey, what are your actual thoughts? I now feel safe engaging in this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess 3 things that these words really help do is 1, they interrupt that automatic reaction loop, that default stress response, fight, flight, flop, and that's 1. 2, they allow that person to feel emotionally safe.
Yep.
So all of a sudden you're grounding, you're creating a safe environment. And the last piece is it creates a door rather than throwing up a wall.
Yes.
Right, here's an opportunity to connect. And that's really what we want when we have conflict. Sometimes conflict can come out of just that there's a seems to be a separation between you and another. And so sometimes the opportunity to recreate or to initiate connection can help in de-escalating that conflict. And so what are some examples that we might use for this?
Yeah. So instead of saying something like you're overreacting, it's just if they're overreacting, what might actually be there is overwhelm. So the better question would be like, help me understand what feels overwhelming to you right now.
Yeah, that's good.
Help me understand how, help me understand why the cluttered countertops set you off. We're not speaking from experience.
I don't know what you're talking about.
This is me. What else?
Yeah, I think another one is like, that's not what I meant. And it's like, well, okay, help me understand what you meant. Yeah. Help me understand what you were trying to convey. Help me understand what I thought I heard versus what you said. Or, basically, I think sometimes we think about public speaking. If you've ever done any public speaking, I think sometimes we focus so much about our words and how we say things. And really, that means nothing. What matters is what people hear. Now, that's an interesting nuance because you're like, well, if I say something, they hear that. It's like, no. You can say something, and I know this because my kids do it all the time. I'll say something, but what I say is not what they hear.
Yes.
And so sometimes when conflict comes up, it's simply because I said something that was heard very, very differently than what I actually meant.
Yeah. We've been revisiting that a lot with our kids lately, being like, okay, what did you just it feels so recent where we just said, okay, what did you hear? Okay. And then what did you tell yourself that meant? What did you tell yourself? And I think our kids are 8 and 9 and our 9-year-old is really starting to grasp this. Like, well, I told myself this. Oh, okay. Well, can you see how when you told yourself that story, it didn't make you feel good? Or that's why you acted that way. Oh, yeah. Well, what if that story wasn't true? Like, why didn't you ask us? Or, so again, help me understand why you're so frustrated with your sister. Help me understand why you're so frustrated with your brother. I even have like another iteration of this. If you can't say help me understand, I've also had said in like really escalated moments, I've paused and said, I want you to be sure I'm hearing you correctly. What I'm hearing you say is, and then I repeat what I think I'm hearing. And oftentimes when the person hears what they say back, they're like, oh, either we heard it wrong and there's an opportunity to correct, or they realize just how maybe not well that was delivered and being like, oh, okay, hearing that from you, I can totally see why that may have ruffled your feathers. Here's what I meant to say.
Yeah, and I would say, and in that moment, right, if we're in conflict, the other person's heightened as well.
Yes.
And so it could be that they've said something that they didn't mean. We're working with one of our other kids on this, is like our words matter. What comes out of our mouth can't be taken back. The whole toothpaste analogy, if you've heard that.
Yep. Once the toothpaste is out of the tube, you can't put it back.
Once it's out of the tube, you can't put it back, whatever it is. But like, the other person is just as activated in that conflict. And so sometimes they say something, and so repeating it back. Now, again, all of this gets thrown out the window if you turn these phrases into accusations or ways to manipulate. So so in that sense, and what you just said, like what I'm hearing you say is if I were to take that and turn that into a manipulative kind of statement, it would be like, what I hear you saying is I'm a terrible person and I'm always wrong.
Yeah, the passive-aggressive jabs. Like, so what I'm hearing you say is I'm a terrible wife. Being like, whoa, that will escalate.
So there's a caveat in the sense of how we do this. And that's kind of, my hope is, and when we talk about these 3 words, is that we do this in a way that is fighting clean.
Yes.
Rather than fighting dirty.
Yeah.
We're not trying to put a scoreboard up and see how many jabs we can take. Mm-hmm. The goal here is to de-escalate, not to put points on the board.
Yeah. And I think, another concept of like fighting clean is you keep it relevant to what the argument is actually about right now. You do not bring up, this reminds me of the last time that you, and like, again, kind of pointing to the scoreboard and like, well, last time and this, or, saying things like you always, you never, try to not say those things because I promise you, you're going to start an argument if you say you always, you never, with those definitive terms. So that's like fighting clean versus fighting dirty.
One last example, which we have written down, I think is really good, is instead of saying, why are you so difficult? Yeah. Rephrasing that to help me understand what's important to you right now.
Yeah.
Kind of like that idea of like, help me understand why this is so important to you right now. Help me understand why this is creating such a response for you right now.
I can clearly see that this is really important to you. Can you help me understand why? Help me understand why it's important. The only way this works is if we stay curious.
Right.
And if we're doing this and we're doing this because we desire connection and not, it's not about winning and not about, whatever stories we might have about conflict. It's just, how do I stay here with this person I care about in this moment? Now, does it become hard when it's someone you maybe aren't close to or don't care about as much? What does that look like, right?
Yeah.
But it's just, I think it's about, at that point, it's about respect. Respect for they're another person. Everyone deserves the dignity of being treated with respect and being heard and being seen, being witnessed because they're human. And that's what we all desire.
Connection.
Right? Connection.
And then this, we talk about this idea that podcasts, Happy Well. This is one of those core statements that Harvard studies talk about is relationship, right? The need for community, the need to be in relationship with people. And anytime you're in relationship with people, you're going to have conflict.
It's only a matter of time.
It's not an if, it's a when.
Yeah.
And I could say this, I guess one caveat to that is to say it might be an if you never decide to stand up for yourself, that you constantly run away from yourself. Then the conflict isn't with others. The conflict is going to be within you.
Yes.
Eventually it will create conflict with others because you will be put into situations where it's like, hey, don't you have an opinion about this? Because you said this over here behind their back and now you're over this and this on this back. And now what do you stand for?
Maybe that might happen, or the person I think will struggle with loneliness, not having true connection because they're not letting their true selves be seen, be heard, because they're constantly managing
everyone else.
And so I actually think it's going to create loneliness.
Man, I think there's a lot to talk about in this concept because I think conflict is, there's a lot there. And the reason why you might avoid conflict is because of that idea, right? In the sense of, I don't want to ruffle feathers. Yeah. So therefore I need to hide my opinion.
100%. That's our fawn.
I always want to be right. Therefore I'm always going to create conflict.
Well, yeah. Or it's just, I don't know. I'm
still trying to get you to say that on the podcast all day today. I'm just going to be like,
I'm not going to say it. No, I'm right. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So here's the thing, kind of transitioning this, like we kind of talked about how this is it's a de-escalation tool. It's not just communication tool, but also one for connection. But also kind of the science behind it is like when we're in that activated response, we're not in our logical brain. We're not in our prefrontal cortex where we can, where we're able to access reason, where we're able to, by the way, you cannot see the other person's side when you are in an activated state. It is impossible, I think, to have empathy or put yourself in the other person's shoes in an activated state. It's impossible. You can't take the time to sit and be like, wait, how might the other person be receiving this right now when you're too busy with your body thinking it needs to outrun a grizzly bear?
Yeah, kind of like the whole active listening is not just preparing for your next statement.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Similar in conflict, right? Like if all you're preparing for is like your next jab, it's tough to understand what the other person's saying.
Yeah, and I think sometimes active listening, it's humbling because you're hearing things and every part of you wants to defend yourself, jump in and be like, no. I think one of the most powerful things I learned was in my early 20s, I had to do like mediation between myself and someone where there was a high level of conflict where there had to be a mediator there. And one of the things I had to learn was they gave me a legal pad, and each of us had a legal pad. And when it was my turn to talk, I was able to say everything I wanted to. But when it was the other person's time to talk, I could not interrupt once. I was never allowed to like raise my hand and be like, hey, can I just speak to that real quick? Hey, no, that's not right. Whoa, where'd you get that from? Like the amount of like self-control was so painful. And I just remember just like scribbling on the legal pad like crazy. And often what I realized is by the time they were done, the heat or the intensity of the moment in which I would have normally wanted to intervene had passed. And so at the end of it, I was like, I was in a kind of I was still maybe frustrated, but in a way less agitated state because there was time between what I heard and the massive urge to just jump in and defend myself.
Yeah.
So sometimes like think about like having a mental legal pad of like, all right, write that down, note it, take a breath. And then what does it look like to respond? So again, specifically, I just want to share what the 3 words does to each response type or stress response. So if you're fight, the help me understand slows down. A fight response thing, they're talking fast, they're moving fast, things are activated. So when you say, hey, help me understand, it forces a slowdown because now they go from being on the attack or on the defense to introspective, which forces them to slow down, forces their breathing. It brings them into a more calm state.
It probably helps them because also they have to think through you. Like if that was me, I'd have to slow down and be like, okay, how do I help her understand why I'm so agitated, or I'm so like, I need to calm down to think through how do I articulate this to you for you to understand.
Yes.
That's good. That's good.
And then next is if you're in flight, someone that wants to leave the room, it creates an invitation to stay present, stay here. Because what the person has done is they've said like, I want to hear from you. So it brings them back in the room. It keeps them in the room.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Saying like, I'm here.
Yeah.
I want you here too.
And I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear what you're going through. I want to hear what's in your head.
Yeah.
That's good.
I think I do that with you.
You do. You do. We haven't used these exact words all the time, but that invitation to be like, hey, help me understand. Well, I guess you kind of have said it in the sense of like, what's going through your head?
Yeah. I go, don't keep it up in there. Say it.
What's the story you're telling yourself right now?
Yeah. Yep.
We use that one a lot too.
Yeah. Next is if you're freeze, it actually grounds them in curiosity and it kind of brings their brain back on. Instead of like fog, oh no, like my brain has completely shut down. It actually brings the brain back online because they've been asked a question. It's curious. They're able to lean in. Yep.
Maybe for them, like when it says, it's like the grizzly bear saying, I'm not hungry. I'm not going to eat you.
Yeah. Oh, okay, grizzly bear.
He's taking a nap now. Okay, now I can think now.
Yes. That's one way of looking at it.
Trying to figure out an analogy with that.
Yeah.
I think that fits pretty good.
It works. And then lastly, if you're in fawn, if you're somebody that wants to overfunction, leave yourself and try to appease everyone, it offers a way to ask for clarity without guilt. And so I think the without guilt is huge. It's just like you get to speak, you get to take up space here.
I think also it's an invitation to disagree.
Yes.
Right? Like, help me understand is allowing, especially if you're doing it out of a place of curiosity.
Yeah.
What you're essentially saying is, I don't understand. Help me understand. Essentially, I'm inviting you into safely disagreeing with maybe my perspective. Whereas someone who's in a stress, fawn, heightened state is probably the reason they're there is because they're just trying to appease the moment.
Yeah.
Right. And so the other person's saying, help me understand is an invitation to say, I know you probably don't see it the way I see it, but I want to know how you see it. I'm giving you an invitation to speak from your point of view.
Your side matters. Yeah. Your narrative matters.
That's good.
Yeah. So really with this, this is about how to stay connected or how to stay present in conflict. And it's not, and yes, there might be times where you might need to take a strategic retreat and be like, hold on, I just need to breathe for a second so I can come back to this. But it's really about staying regulated enough to stay present in the conversation,
to
stay present, to still connect. Because any conflict creates a small rupture. And anytime there is the communication, it offers time for repair. Like a rupture will happen, and the rupture is not the problem. And I remember, my guide saying this to me at the retreat I went to, is like, rupture isn't the problem. Rupture actually helps create secure attachment in relationships, because if I know you're still here after a rupture, I have more security with you in our relationship. It's the rupture isn't the problem. It's the repair. And they even said to me, because I think as parents, sometimes we're so afraid of creating ruptures for our children. It's just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to harm them, traumatize them. And she's like, you're going to cause ruptures with your child, but what they will remember is your repair. And so that's why it's just like, all right, how do we stay present enough to repair, to listen, to communicate, and still be present? So
good. So that is a perfect segue.
Yep.
Into our segment of
do. Happy well homework. Yeah. So you go.
You want me to go?
Yeah, I'm gonna have you tell it.
Do it. That's the homework.
All right. I'll do it. Okay. No, it's like pick a recent conflict. And so first you reflect a little bit and ask yourself, was I trying to understand, or was I trying to win? What was happening in there? Or even ask yourself, what was my stress response there? Did I fight to be right? Did I try to leave the room? Did my brain go foggy? Or did I leave my own feelings and appease the person, apologize for things I didn't do? Try to identify it. And then in your next tough moment, first, practice taking a pause, take a breath. You're going to have to take a breath first. That's the only way that you can get out of this super activated state. It's just in the next tough moment, just say, help me understand.
Yeah. Well, I'd even say another way, instead of just trying to put it right into the next heated moment, what if just getting comfortable with the phrase, just starting using the phrase, just in everyday moments, right? This idea of you're talking to someone that you're in relationship with, or maybe even at Starbucks, someone says something, or at the grocery store, someone says something, and you just simply, it doesn't have to be heated conflict. It's just a simple, I want to practice using this phrase and getting comfortable with it. I'm just gonna say, hey, help me understand what you mean by that. It's just, what that's doing is it's allowing you to flex your curiosity muscle without demanding it being at the time of a heated conflict. And so what you're allowing yourself to get curious and to flex the curiosity muscle in a phrase that you start to use more and more and more, so that when there is that next heated moment, maybe it becomes a little easier to access.
Yeah, I love that. And then once you do it, just take a moment afterwards to just notice hey, what shifted in me once I asked that question? How was I feeling before I asked the question? How did I feel after? And then how did that person respond? Just because what you're doing is your brain is creating data and evidence for why that is a good tool to keep using and reaching for. And even if it maybe didn't go well the first time, you might have to ask okay, why didn't it? Did I not stay present with myself? Did the person still fight from their reactive state, and did I leave my regulated state and react again? What could I have done better? So I think oftentimes the reflection post conflict is just as important.
So good. Hey, so listen, if you enjoyed the podcast, we'd love for you just to give a comment below, or subscribe, thumbs up, or leave a review if you're listening to this on a streaming platform. And with that, we've developed a way for you to identify your stress type and how you would respond, particularly as we talked about today in conflict. If you'd love to learn more about that, we'll have a link to our free quiz down in the show notes or in the description on YouTube that you can go and you can find out your stress type.
All right, friends. So go live happy, live well, and fight well.
fight clean.
Yeah.
Hey, and next week we are going to dive into the idea of boundaries, which will be perfect as a follow-up to conflict.
Yes.
So stick with us next week. We'll see you then.